Kurt Cobain is arguably one of the most influential guitarists of his generation. While Nirvana was only active for 7 years and only put out 3 studio albums in that time, their impact and influence has been massive and is still felt 30 plus years after Kurt's passing. Smells Like Teen Spirit has joined the ranks of songs like Smoke on the Water, Back in Black, and Sunshine of Your Love of immortal riffs that inspired thousands of kids to pick up a guitar for the first time. A fascinating aspect of Kurt the guitarist is simply just the variety of guitars that he chose to bring on stage. Whether it was early on in the Bleach era with a very utilitarian outlook of making do with what you have, to the polar opposite on the Neutro tour, where Kurt was now designing his own custom guitar and placing bulk orders for 10 brand new Fender Mustangs. Nirvana may not have been a band for very long, but I think we can all agree that Kurt accumulated one hell of a guitar collection. In this video, we will be breaking down the top 10 guitars that Kurt Cobain played the most live. Which guitars did he think best represented the sound he was hearing in his head? Which guitars best suited the songs he wanted his live audience to experience? With no direct quotes from Kurt himself regarding that, the next best thing that we can do is simply look at the numbers of how often he used what. We'll also break down each guitar's respective specs and notable shows it was used at. Here's how I went about creating this list and the criteria that I set for myself. For the stats and numbers of how many shows each guitar was used at, I got that from Live Nirvana's detailed equipment guide. I really can't say enough about Live Nirvana and how much I love that website. It's the #1 ultimate resource for anything and everything regarding the band. So huge, tremendous shout out and thank you to Live Nirvana and to their equipment guide specifically, and to all those who update it and overlook it. So the guitars will be ranked by the number of shows they appeared at, but where it gets tricky is the percentage of the show that they were used for. For example, should a show that is completely Skystang I hold the same weight compared to a show where a Hot Rail Strat was used for only the last 3 or 4 songs? Should those points for each guitar be counted differently or the same? For it to be truly 100% fair in that respect, we would need to look at every show these guitars were used at and make note of the percentage of each show the guitar was used for. Simply put, we don't have enough video footage to accurately do that. There are so many shows where we have multiple pictures, but little to no video of. So while the guitars will be ranked strictly based off the number of shows they appeared at, for each one, I'll specify whether or not I would consider that guitar to be a main guitar for that time period or not. If it's a main guitar, it would have been used for at least half of the set or more. If it's not a main, its count includes shows where it was used for just a few songs or even maybe just smash that. Okay, now that we've got all the logistics and rules out of the way, let's get to the list. In total, Nirvana played 388 live shows in their career. So, which guitars were used the most? Number 10 is this white Fender Stratocaster that I have personally always referred to as the Seattle Coliseum Strat. Used at 13 shows, first appearing on November 5th, 1991. People often send me photos of this show with shocked messages like, wait, Kurt used a stock SSS Strat live? And yes, he did. It can best be heard and seen in this form at the November 19th, 1991 show in Rome, Italy. It would go on to get black Seymour Duncan Hot Rails in September 1992 and was used for the final time at the Seattle Center Coliseum on September 11th, 1992. For many years, it was on display at the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle in their amazing Nirvana exhibit. Number 9 is Orange Stang, which was also used at 13 shows. The reason I placed this one above the White Strat is that I would consider this a main guitar for the time period, where for the White Strat, I would not. I would feel very comfortable betting that this Mustang was used at a much higher percentage show by show than the Strat was. In the summer of 1993, Kurt Cobain placed an order with the Fender Custom Shop for 10 left-handed MG69 Fender Mustangs for the upcoming In Utero tour. The first 2 he received from this order went on to become this one and Skystang I. It makes its first appearance in its first form on July 23rd, 1993 at the Roseland Ballroom in New York. The only mods done at this point were Seymour Duncan JB Jr. in the bridge position and Schaller strap locks. As memorable as this form is, it only lasted this one show. When we next see it on the Neutro tour, it's in its final Orange Stang form of having a white pickguard, full-size Seymour Duncan JB, and Godot 2-Nomatic bridge. It's probably most known for being used at Nirvana's Canal Plus TV performance on February 4th, 1994. An excellent full-length show that is Orange Stang heavy is November 9th, 1993 at the Stabler Arena in Pennsylvania. Next, at number 8, with being used at 16 shows, is what fans have nicknamed the Courtney Tele, a very unique looking Japanese telecaster custom that Kurt painted blue, and he carved out a large heart, Courtney's name, and placed several stickers on it. First appearing in January 1992 on Nirvana's Pacific Rim tour, it was very clearly a main guitar for that tour. It interestingly changed tunings 3 times on that tour, starting out in standard, going down a full step to D standard, and then back up to a half step down in E flat. It was stock for this entire tour. It was later modded to have Seymour Duncan hot rails for the Summer 92 European tour. At this point, it is no longer a main guitar and just makes the rare appearance here and there before being smashed for good on January 16th, 1993 in Sao Paulo, Brazil. My recommended Courtney Tele show would be January 25th, 1992 at the Big Day Out in Australia. This is a great one where you can hear the Tele's bright and jangly stock sound in its full glory. Coming in at number 7 is Kurt's Epiphone ET270, which was used at 18 shows. I'm personally really happy to see this one was played enough to make the list. I think this is one of the best and most underrated Nirvana guitars just in general. Made in the 70s in the Matsumoku factory in Japan, some describe it as essentially being Epiphone's budget take on a Stratocaster. Kurt kept his ET270 stock and used it extensively from January to April 1990. In this span of time, it was used for either the majority or the entirety of their shows. There's also enough reason to believe that it was used at the Smart Sessions in April of 1990, what was meant to be Nirvana's second Sub Pop album, but then later on became the Nevermind demos. It was smashed for good on February 26, 1990 at the Pyramid Club in New York, never to be seen again. It's the main guitar that was used at the February 9th, 1990 Pine Street Theater show that's on the Bleach 20th Anniversary editions. But if you want to actually see this beautiful guitar in action and not just hear it, I recommend checking out both February 16th, 1990 at Bogart's and April 10th, 1990 at Blind Pig. Number 6 is the white Phase 3 Univox High Flyer that was used at 20 shows from July to November of 1989. The Phase 3 High Flyer is looked at as the Bleach era guitar, and with good reason. But I feel like everyone is always bringing up and talking about these two Phase 3s specifically. So I was personally really surprised to see that's actually the white Phase 3 that was used the most. As with all his Phase 3s, Kurt kept his stock. He liked the Phase 3 humbuckers so much that he wouldn't replace them, but he would actually reuse them in different guitars as he smashed his high flyers.
And these pickups are amazing. Just the tone, they just have such a bite. You can hear it, the music speaks for itself.
September 30th, 1989 at the Cabaret Metro in Chicago is a really great show at which this high flyer was used at for every song. Before we get to the top 5, I do want to give an honorable mention to Kurt's legendary Martin D18E that was used at Unplugged. Coming in at being used at 21 shows, that would technically make it tied for 5th place on this list. But I'm not including acoustics in this list because aside from Unplugged, it would have been used for only 1 to 4 songs per show. But I just had to note it and include it somehow in this video, as it is noteworthy for being the acoustic guitar Kurt used the most live, even if you chose to exclude Unplugged. Alright, going back to the full list now, at number 5 is the Tom Strat, which was used at 21 shows. What is most likely a Japanese ST362 Fender Stratocaster, this guitar went through many different forms. It was used mainly from March to October of 1991. It originally had a slanted Seymour Duncan 59N, and this is how we see it in early 91. It was used at Sound City during the Nevermind sessions in May of that year, and smashed during the recording of Endless Nameless. It then went on to get repaired with the unusual mod of a Tunomatic bridge and stop tail piece. That's where the nickname comes from. It was eventually smashed again on October 12th, 1991 at the Cabaret Metro in Chicago. It makes a reappearance in a third repaired state in the summer of 92, but as of now, all we have are these Polaroid photos of it after it was smashed again. My go-to Tom Strat show, which I highly recommend, is September 21st, 1991. Just a few days before Nevermind was released, it features some amazing close-ups of this Frankenstein Nirvana guitar. Number 4 is the iconic Vandalism Stratocaster, which was used at 25 shows. Of Kurt's many strats, I don't think anyone would argue against this one being the most famous and well-known one. It's become a symbol of the grunge movement and 90s rock just in general. Another Japanese ST362 Fender Stratocaster. It was made in either 1989 or 1990, and it also had a Seymour Duncan 59N humbucker, and of course, the instantly recognizable Vandalism bumper sticker. It didn't always have the sticker. This guitar was first used in June of 1991, and we don't see the sticker until that August. I would definitely consider this one a main guitar for the entirety of the time it was used, from June to December of 1991, with the exception of its final 2 shows. Even as it went through 2 neck changes and repeated smashings, it did not get knocked down to the rank of end-of-set smasher until December, when it was destroyed for the final time on December 7th, 1991. For recommended shows, there's no way we cannot bring up Live at the Paramount and Live at the Paradiso, some of Nirvana's most beloved shows. They both heavily feature Vandalism in its second and third form respectively. But if you want to dig deeper under the surface and see it in action with its stock Fender neck, the form in which it was in for the longest period of time, I would recommend Ready 91 and the show from the next day on August 24th, 1991 in Denmark. Number 3 was a surprise to me, so let me know in the comments if this surprises you too. Kurt's first Hot Rail Strat, which was used at 28 shows. Again, it starts to get murky because arguably this is not a main guitar. Its percentage of use per show is potentially pretty low, but with a high number like 28 shows, I couldn't not include it on the list, which is why you're seeing it here. Most likely a Japanese Stratocaster again. It already has the Seymour Duncan hot rails installed in its first appearance on December 5th, 1991. I don't think it's a coincidence that Vandalism went on to get smashed for good only 2 days later. Kurt's live guitars in the Nevermind era after the album was released was almost consistently Jaguar plus the Stratocaster of the week. He must have liked the hot rails over the 59N, as this would be far from his first hot rail Strat. He went on to have many, but this one has the distinction of being the first and the most used. 1992, it gets a Kramer replacement neck and is last seen at that year's Reading Festival. Notable shows for this guitar include, of course, Reading 92 and the early 92 TV performances at Saturday Night Live and MTV Studios. We are now going to see a huge leap in show numbers for the top 2. Used at 53 shows is the mighty Skystang I, one of the first guitars that Kurt received from the Fender custom shop after placing that order for 10 Mustangs in the summer of 1993. It's a 1993 MG69 Mustang that was made in the Fujigen factory in Japan. Nirvana guitar tech Ernie Bailey modded it extensively to get it ready for Nirvana's biggest headlining tours, routing out the pickguard to fit a full-size humbucker, installing a white Seymour Duncan JB and scratching out the logo, installing a large Nashville-style Tunomatic bridge, and flipping and locking the tailpiece. Skystang I then went on to become Kurt's #1 guitar on the In Utero tour by a long shot. None of the other Stangs even come remotely close. Nirvana played 64 dates on the In Utero tour, and with this guitar being used at least 53 of them, pick any of these shows and there's an 83% chance you're going to be listening to this guitar at some point in the show. In my mind, this makes Skystang I the face of the In Utero era gear-wise. With so many to choose from, it's hard to recommend just one show for this guitar. The most famous Skystang I show is easily Live and Loud. It was used for every song except for Blue and for the stage Destruction. I could honestly put out an entire video discussing the In Utero tour show by show. That's my favorite time period in music. But for starters, if you want to see and hear this beautiful guitar in action, I'm going to recommend the videos for December 2nd, 1993, December 31st, 1993, and February 22nd, 1994. After Kurt's passing, Courtney Love gifted Skystang I to Kurt's brother Chad Cobain. Chad Cobain had it displayed in the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle for 18 years, before auctioning it off in 2023 through Julian's Auctions. It sold for $1.6 million, which currently makes it the 8th most expensive guitar ever sold. I had the absolute honor of helping Julian's announce and spread the word about this auction back in October of 2023. I extensively documented it and created a detailed visual record for it. One of the highlights of my life, as this is my favorite guitar of all time. If you want to see nearly every inch of Kurt Cobain's second most played guitar, measured, analyzed, discussed in detail, and even hear it being played present day, check out this video. It'll be linked right here. And here we are now at number 1. With a sizable lead, the guitar that Kurt Cobain played the most is his legendary Fender Jaguar, which was used at a whopping 94 shows. Arguably, nowadays, looked at as the Kurt Cobain guitar to the general public. Kurt himself is quoted as saying that it's a 1966 Jaguar, but it's been widely accepted that it's actually a 1965. It was extensively modded, but not by or for Kurt. It's widely believed and accepted to have been previously owned by Martin Jenner, guitarist for Cliff Richards and the Everly Brothers. Kurt got his Jaguar through an ad published in LA's Recycler magazine. When he got it, it already had the very unique mods of dual DiMarzio humbuckers, 2 pneumatic bridge, additional volume control, and the pickup selector switches being replaced with a single 3-way toggle switch. First seen on June 10th, 1991, it's a mainstay and constant at Nirvana shows up until August of 1993. Another guitar which is extremely difficult to just pick a few shows for. But for its biggest highlights, I would include Live at the Paramount, Live at Paradiso, Ready 92, and Saturday Night Live 1992. Pick any live Nevermind era show after the album was recorded and you are 100% going to see and hear this guitar. Interestingly, Kurt had the DiMarzio Super Distortion humbucker switched out to a Seymour Duncan JB for the In Utero tour, but it was never actually used live in that form. I was personally able to confirm this by speaking to In Utero tour guitar tech Jim Vincent, who kept detailed notes on which guitars were used on which dates. He told me that while they traveled with the Jaguar, it was never actually used on stage. He also shared with me that upon Kurt's request, he took a peek under the pickguard to do some work on it and saw what he described as the biggest mess of tangled wires he's ever seen and immediately closed it. He then told Kurt he would perform the requested work at the conclusion of the European leg of the tour, but due to obvious circumstances, this unfortunately never happened. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed learning the stats, specs, and facts about Kurt Cobain's most played guitars. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this one. Let me know in the comments what surprised you and what didn't surprise you. Just for reference, if I had made this list go beyond 10, all of these were used at 12 shows, and there would have been even more ties if we were trying to go for the top 15. So it just made sense to me to cut it off at the top 10 at that point. Thank you so much for watching, and an extra special shout out to my Patreon supporters. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Nirvana Guitars. Subscribe here on YouTube for more weekly Nirvana gear videos, and I'll see you in the next one.